and good evening. I'd like to call the Town of Ingersoll regular meeting of council Monday, August 14th, 2023 to order at 6 p.m. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Councillor Hallerud.
That my company has put in a bid. All right, so my disclosure is that my company has put in a bid for the Arena Canteen, and so I declare pecuniary interest in that regard.
Thank you very much. Our delegation that was scheduled has been postponed, so we'll go to the consent agenda. And Councillor Bowman, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, Councillor Bowman, seconded by Councillor Hughes, that the items contained on the August 14th, 2023 consent agenda be adopted as presented.
Discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Now the council minutes for the July meeting. Councillor Hughes, please.
Moved by myself, Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Hallerud, that the minutes from July 10th, 2023 regular meeting of council be adopted as presented.
Discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We will now go down to special reports. Item number 1C-02523, Town of Ingersoll Video Surveillance Policy. Mr. Graves, please.
Yes, thank you. Actually, seeing that this is a clerk's report, I'll turn it over to the deputy clerk to give us a synopsis.
Thank you. I'm presenting on behalf of the clerk. Thank you. So this informational report is intended to provide council with an overview of the use of video surveillance systems within various town-owned and operated facilities and open spaces. Surveillance of municipal property and facilities is intended to safeguard assets and deter crime. However, surveillance also results in the collection of personal information as defined under the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. As a result of this collection and the creation of records, the town is required to adopt a policy to establish rules and expectations for use of its surveillance systems, which includes guidelines detailing custody, control and access to records that are created, how records will be safeguarded and how the public will be notified of the collection. The video surveillance policy attached to the report will be applicable to all town-owned, operated and leased facilities and public spaces, and all staff will be subject to the policy's requirements. The collection and protection of personal information is of the utmost importance to the town and will be managed cooperatively through the IT, clerks and CAO's offices.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions of the report? Seeing none. Councillor Hallerud, I believe you have a resolution, please.
Yes, Mayor. Through you. Moved by myself, Councillor Hallerud, seconded by Councillor Van Koppen-Bosens, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive staff report C-02523 as information, and that Council approves the adoption of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll Video Surveillance Policy.
Thank you very much. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I just want to thank staff. It's a very well-written policy, and I think it's comprehensive in what how it details. I know I wrote down some items at the beginning of reading this one, and they're all crossed off at the end. So I think it's a good policy going forward and provide the protection needed, but allows for the use of the security cameras in the first place to be there, right? So certainly supportive of that. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Item number 2 under special report, C-2623, Ingersoll Curling Club seed funding request. Mr. Graves, please.
Yes, and I'll again turn this over to our deputy clerk to give a synopsis, but we may want some input from our economic development department as well.
So this report seeks Council's consideration of a pre-budget funding request from the Ingersoll Curling Club for $10,000 in support of the forthcoming 2024 Ontario Men's and Women's Curling Championships to be held at the Flight Exec Centre in Dorchester. The town offered financial support for the same championship in 2015 through the 2013 budget in the amount of $10,000 and then provided an additional $2,000 in 2015 for the event luncheon. Both amounts were funded through the Community Development Grant Programme. Staff, specifically the Manager of Economic Development and Tourism, are supportive of this request due to the potential exposure for the town. If approved, the Director of Finance has advised that the $10,000 will be assigned to the Community Development Grant Programme budget for 2023 under the seed funding category. These funds will be drawn from the Community Improvement Reserve and will subsequently be replenished in the 2024 budget.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions of the report? Deputy Mayor Wilson, please.
I had some questions answered through the information that was provided by staff, so thank you for that. And I'm supportive of the request and the benefit it will provide to the town. But I do want to make sure that there are efforts being made to actually bring those people to Ingersoll, like physically leave the arena to visit Ingersoll, to the businesses, to the hotels. So I guess I'm just curious from staff, outside of the $10,000 sponsorship, the activities maybe in partnership with the BIA or the staff in that municipality, how we will get those people to actually physically set foot in our community.
Curtis, please.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, so part of the sponsorship is actually the opportunity to have a trade show booth at the event. So there's about, I got numbers actually on the weekend. So they anticipate about 18 to 20,000 visitors coming to Dorchester. So obviously Dorchester doesn't have the facilities to house that many people. So there will be some spillover effect. But having the trade show booth at the event will give us an opportunity to exhibit and show some of the opportunities. But certainly if council is supportive of this type of sponsorship, then we would look at ways to partner with the BIA, the Chamber of Commerce, and different organizations, and as well as businesses in general, in order to determine what type of incentives, what type of opportunities they would like to highlight as well through that sponsorship. So certainly if council is supportive of this, then staff will do whatever we can to capitalize on it and ensure that we get as many people spending as many tourism dollars as we can in the community, outside of the sponsorship opportunities that are part of this package as well. Having millions of people view this live stream with our logo prominent will certainly be a key feature.
Excellent. A follow-up, Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you. So just to follow up then, do staff feel like there's any need to earmark additional funding in a different budget to put towards this? Or are you happy with just bringing that forward during the regular budget process?
It's something that we can handle likely within the economic development and tourism budget and just allocate funds towards that. Certainly staff resources to attend in the booth, as well as I think most of it's going to be staff time, but we'll work with our partners and see what type of opportunities that we can have, and if we have to capitalize on some of that, we can certainly likely find budget within our existing economic development and tourism budget.
Councillor Van Kooten-Bosens and then Councillor Bowman, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I remember when the tankard came a few years ago. I was working at the hotel, and we actually put together packages and had the hotel filled with curlers. So those people that were participating stayed in Ingersoll and then drove to Dorchester. And I'm sure that if we talk with the hotels, both the Comfort and the Elmhurst, the Comfort's going through a huge major renovation right now. Hopefully they'll be finished. And the Elmhurst, I'm sure, will look at doing something as well. But hosting events back at the hotels is one way of getting them back into Ingersoll and getting them into our restaurants, etc. We're not that far of a drive from Dorchester, and it was amazing how many spectators actually wanted to stay in Ingersoll and not go to London as well. So I think it's a matter of working with the curling club, which they're already in the process of reaching out to, because I've received a request through the Kiwanis Club as well. So they're in the process of reaching out to all of the service groups and getting them involved in some way, shape, or form. They've got kids programs that they're trying to run into the schools as well. So I think that's one way that probably Kiwanis will get involved. But I think that there's ways that we can work with the curling club to make sure that that business comes this way. And I'm just glad that our Ingersoll Curling Club has stepped back up to be able to do it, and that Dorchester honestly has the facility. They've ran it before there, and the Ingersoll Curling Club really felt very comfortable at the Dorchester arena to do it. So I agree. It's a great opportunity, but how do you get them to come back to Ingersoll? There's ways, and I think that we'll be able to do that. So thank you very much.
Yep, Councillor Bowman, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and to you and through you to Deputy Mayor. Yes, if I remember correctly, the BIA last time, we did also partner. As Councillor Van Kooten-Bosens has already alluded to, people wanted to stay. They stayed in the hotels, and I believe we offered some incentives for them to come and eat in the downtown core. So we did everything we could to capture the audience that was here. So I think if we approve this, it will be a successful event for all.
Questions of the report? Seeing none, Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, Councillor Bowman, seconded by Councillor Van Kooten-Bosens, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive staff report C-026-23 as information, and further that Council approve the Ingersoll District Curling Club's $10,000 seed funding request for 2024, and further that Council direct the pre-budget approval be given and that the $10,000 grant be funded from the Community Improvement Reserve, with the provision that the reserve will be replenished through the 2024 operating budget.
Discussion. I'll say I'm in support of this. I think the Deputy Mayor is right. We certainly want to capitalize on it. This is the Ingersoll Curling Club event, and so Ingersoll, I know it's in January, but maybe Dorchester can hold the event, we can throw the party. And so that's really where we can contribute to that. We have the resources, certainly, in my opinion, better facilities to do that in town. Yeah, certainly we have lots of notice. So anybody who wants to get involved and thinking about what they can do, there's time there to be able to plan that and come together and really have a special event and then show the world really what Ingersoll has to offer through that. So I certainly agree with that. So any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And we will now move on to item number 3. Oh, we'll just wait for Councillor Halliru to, and we will inform you when we are through with this item. Excellent. Perfect. On to item C-02723, request for exemption from RFP requirements. Mr. Graves, please.
So this is a bit of a unique circumstance, but it does happen from time to time. We wanted to make sure that we were transparent about it, so this formal process is here. I'll let the Deputy Clerk describe it in a little more detail.
Thank you. And this report seeks Council's consideration of a request submitted by Councillor Halliru for exemption from language contained in RFP CS 2023-10, canteen operations that prohibits members of Council from submitting bid proposals. Specifically, the RFP contains restrictive language with respect to council member eligibility to bid on operation of the arena canteen. However, the town's procurement bylaw 15-7801 and the Code of Conduct for members of council, local boards and advisory committees, bylaw 21-5147, do not contain the same restrictive language and do not specifically prohibit members of council from bidding on town RFPs. Staff are seeking Council's direction on Councillor Halliru's request to exempt her submission from the form of proposal requirements in the RFP documents. If Councillor Halliru's request is approved and she is selected as the approved vendor through the competitive bidding process, she will be required to declare a pecuniary interest in the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act on any other matter relating to the RFP, the operation of the canteen, and any topic that may incidentally affect its operations.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions of the report? Councillor Bowman, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just for clarification, Michael, can you confirm that this has been done in other municipalities?
Yes, it's done fairly frequently. It's happened when I worked for the municipality of Bayham and the town of Tillsonburg and in Norwich. So it does happen from time to time where individual councillors do work for the municipality. There are times where some councillors will do minor work that may not be like an actual RFP process. This is a request for proposal, so it's rather a more elaborate way of getting information. So in this case, we're asking if council will consider an exemption so that we can actually consider the RFP. But yeah, it happens fairly frequently, especially in small municipalities where individuals may end up performing work for the municipality. And this way is a fairly transparent way of actually dealing with it so that council can say, yes, we agree to it, or no, we don't.
Thank you.
Councillor Youth, then Councillor Van Koon-Bosens.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to the CAO, why is this the only policy that basically exempts councillors from bidding on RFPs or submitting an RFP?
In this process, when we develop the RFP, because it's a request for a proposal, it's a rather larger sort of request, sort of open-ended. When you do a request for proposal, it was written with a very strict language to try to make it not too broad. And so because of that, it had this requirement in there. But I think this is something that we've talked about as staff, and we'd like to look at either for inclusion in the code of conduct or perhaps the procurement bylaw, because this process, you know, councillors do live and work in the community. They should have an opportunity to be able to actually help out the municipality, but they should be able to do it in a way that's transparent to the public. So what we're doing here today and what we're considering, I think, should be codified in one of those bylaws to ensure that we handle this in the same manner every time going forward. So that would be what we'd be looking at going forward.
Councillor Van Koon-Bosens.
That was going to be my next question, is how do we stop it from coming back? And you just answered it. So I know that I have it, but can it be just direction at this point in time that I think that it could go back to staff to look at putting it as part of the code of conduct, or do you want me to put that as part of the motion?
I think that's something staff would undertake anyway. You know, this process highlighted to us that it probably should be more codified, so it's something we've been already talking about internally about how we would handle that. So I appreciate that direction.
Any further questions? Seeing not, Councillor Van Koon-Bosens, do you have a resolution?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Wilson, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive staff report C-027-23 as information, and that Council approve Councillor Helleroo's request to waive the language contained in RFP CS-2023-10 that prohibits council member submissions.
Thank you very much. Any discussion? All I'll say is that, yeah, the Conflict of Interest Act talks about this. You know, you're allowed to do things as councillors. You're allowed to have businesses, especially in a small town, as CAO has said. You're more likely to run into situations where people are in that conflict of interest. So I think that if everything is at a state where it's fair process, where everybody has the same information, and I certainly don't remember any information in terms of council that would compromise that. I certainly believe that everybody should have the fair ability to make an income. Again, as long as everything is open and transparent, everybody plays by the same rules. I don't see any reason why not. So I'm fully supportive of that, and I'll be in support of the motion. All right. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Let's have Councillor Halleroo return. Welcome back. And we will move on to item 4C-02823, request to join Coalition of Inclusive Municipalities. Mr. Grace, please.
Okay, and I'll turn this over to the Deputy Clerk, as the clerks have been involved with this committee and can give some background.
Thank you. This report seeks Council's approval of the Ingersoll Diversity and Inclusion Committee's request that the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll join the Coalition of Inclusive Municipalities. Joining the coalition is established within the committee's mandate and has been identified by the committee's membership as an advantageous first step towards developing its plan of action, as it will open up access to resources and member municipalities. Joining the coalition requires council support via council resolution, signing the declaration attached to the staff report and providing that declaration to UNESCO.
Thank you very much. Questions of the report? Seeing none, Deputy Mayor Wilson, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Bowman, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive Staff Report C-28-23 as information, and given that 1, the Canadian Commission for UNESCO, United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, is calling on municipalities to join a coalition of inclusive municipalities and to be part of UNESCO's international coalition launched in 2004, and 2, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, FCM, endorses the call for a coalition of inclusive municipalities and encourages its members to join. And whereas 3, municipal governments in Canada, along with other levels of government, have responsibilities under Canada's Charter of Rights and Freedoms, as well as federal, provincial, and territorial human rights codes, and therefore have an important role to play in combating racism and discrimination and fostering equality and respect for all citizens. Be it resolved that 4, the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll agrees to join the Coalition of Inclusive Municipalities, and in joining the coalition endorses the common commitments and agrees to develop or adapt its own unique plan of action accordingly. 5, these common commitments and the municipality's unique plan of action will be an integral part of the municipality's vision, strategies, and policies. 6, in developing or adapting and implementing its own unique plan of action towards progressive realization of the common commitments, the municipality will cooperate with other organizations and jurisdictions, including other levels of government, Indigenous peoples, public and private sector institutions, and civil society organizations, all of whom have responsibilities in the area of human rights. 7, the municipality will set its priorities, actions, and timelines and allocate resources according to its unique circumstances and within its means and jurisdiction. The municipality will engage its expertise and share best practices with other municipalities involved in the coalition and will report publicly on an annual basis on actions undertaken towards the realization of these common commitments. And further, that Mayor Petrie be directed to sign the declaration to join the Coalition of Inclusive Municipalities on behalf of the corporation.
Thank you very much. Discussion. Councillor Hughes, please.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for bringing this forward and making a move on this. I guess I should have asked this question earlier. It shows there's no financial implications, but moving forward, are we going to be able to handle this, all the requirements through our existing staff levels?
Certainly through you. There's no intention to be adding any resources to this. We will be looking at incorporating some of our details through our Human Resources Department that we currently have, but nothing in this would be cause for any expansion of staff.
Thank you very much.
Further discussion? Well, I certainly want to thank our committee for taking this giant step. It's the first step in many. I'm glad to sign the declaration on their behalf. It certainly give them the tool set and the access to information that will be able to move the mandate forward. So congratulations to them. And they have chosen to focus on 3 of the goals, as it says in the report. And so that, as it goes through budget process, again, talk to the needed resources will be able to be allocated there and be incorporated in the budget process. So, any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And moving along, we'll go to item 6T-07-23, multi-year budget and, oh, sorry, I missed one, sorry. Number 5, OP-01323, Centennial Park Footbridge Rehabilitation Consideration. Mr. Grace, please.
Thank you. Council had some questions about the pedestrian footbridge at this location, and I appreciate the work of the town engineer and our Public Works Manager to put this report together and document what's the status of that. We've given you a number of options here, but I'd like to be clear that the option that staff are recommending is that we actually do install warning signs on the current bridge, and that we go to a request for proposal for a design of a new pedestrian bridge and that it be installed in the location. That's the recommendation of staff. I don't think I have anything else to add to it, and I don't know if the town engineer does, but
Through your worship, no, that's a good summary of what the report entails. Essentially, in the report, we included a further analysis on the health of the town's existing bridge inventory and how this structure can be considered a priority structure based on the reports that we've received and the current capital planning for maintaining our asset health. So I'd be happy to answer any questions council may have.
Excellent. Are there any questions of the report? Oh, Deputy Mayor Wilson, please.
Through you to staff. I think maybe everyone had a bit of sticker shock, but I don't work in the bridge industry. So how long would you expect a structure like this to last in terms of the asset management on this moving forward?
you want to take Roger? Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the budget that's included in this report is for a steel structure. So you can expect a 100-year life cycle at least on a structure like this. But during the RFP process, we'd be looking at different structure life cycles of different options that would be available, from a wood bridge to a steel bridge, and then the initial cost thereof, and the maintenance cost, the longevity, those things would iron out. But so this is for a steel structure.
Councillor Halleru, please.
Yeah, so what I did notice is the time frame that it would take to fix it. Like, how long do people have to wait before there's an existing bridge to use again?
Mr. Graves?
Yeah, maybe if staff are recommending the first option there, the current bridge would stay in place during this time. It'd just be during the actual construction, and that would sort of depend on whether or not we end up using this exact same area. There might be some other options depending on what we get to RFP. So this resolution's just reflecting that it may be possible during the actual construction that there may be some blockage of that bridge, but I would expect that's, weeks, not much of a blockage.
Okay, because option 3 had the removal completely and not, yeah. Okay, thanks.
Any further questions? Seeing none, Councillor Bowman, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, Councillor Bowman, seconded by Councillor Hughes, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive staff report OP-013-23 as information, and further that staff be directed to install pedestrian warning signage on both ends of the Centennial Park pedestrian footbridge, structure B-38, and that staff be directed to issue a request for proposal for a structural design of a replacement pedestrian footbridge structure to replace structure 38. And further that staff investigate grant and/or other funding opportunities to help offset the cost of replacing the foot pedestrian bridge in Centennial Park.
Discussion. No, I think it's, I think this is the right move, and I think that, of course, again, depending on the RFP process, I guess we'll see different options come forward. But I think anytime that we can look at grants, it's a good idea. So I appreciate that very much. So, Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In respect to your comment about sticker shock, yes, it is sticker shock when you start talking about bridges. I remember when we had to replace the bridge leading into Centennial Park off of King Street. That was quite a sticker shock. But now that it's replaced, everybody's gotten over the sticker price, and it's a bridge we couldn't do without. It's a steel structure. It's already been in, at least 15 years, and it still doesn't show any wear or tear. So, again, short-term pain for long-term gain.
I certainly agree with that. And again, there's increasing accessibility. I'm sure there's some available funding out there for that as well. So, looking forward to a better bridge, I guess.
Better bridge.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Now we will go to number 6, T-01723, multi-year budget and 2024 to 2027 budget meeting schedule. Mr. Graves.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to the treasurer, but I just want to also say we're trying very hard to fit these meetings in so that we can have the budget adopted before the end of the year. It's a little bit of a tight time frame and trying to pick those days, and maybe some conflicts. If there's anything that comes up where council feels we can't meet that and we need to postpone, staff are flexible. We're not trying to just force you to do all these meetings. So I don't know if the treasurer has anything to add.
Thank you. So as you can see, the report presents a multi-year budget framework for council's consideration. This will be a shift from our current single-year budgeting process to a multi-year budgeting approach. So the proposed framework is recommended for adoption starting the 2024 budget year and will cover 2024 to 2027, so it's 4 years of budgeting. So we will continue using a 10-year span for our capital budget, so there is no changes in that area, only the operational budget will see changes. So this transition will align our financial decisions with the long-term council, long-term strategic planning. Will also will offer just a proactive approach to financial planning. And as the CEO mentioned, we are also recommending a schedule for upcoming budget meetings, budget discussions. So we are suggesting to hold 4 meetings starting October, and we also really hope to adopt the budget this year in December. Again, it's not set in stone, so the dates are just recommendations, and council may adjust them according to your preference.
Mr. Graves.
Yeah, and if I could just follow up, I'd like to point out, even though we'll be doing multi-year budgeting, it still means that we'll be doing our budget every year. We'll still be sitting back down and going over our budget every year. It's just that the multi-year budgeting gives you more consistency and more predictability. You'll be looking at things over multiple years. And it's really good for those items that you know that they're up and coming. We do it a fair bit with capital already. When operating, a good example for council is that one of the budget items we put in our budget already for the future is that after the next election, we're planning to do an update to the strategic plan, so that in a 4-year thing, we can plot that out there and you know where that is, and that's predictable for all future councils and future residents.
Questions of the report? Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you. Through you to staff. To the question about the strategic plan, I love the idea of multi-year budgeting and the stability that it provides to staff and to council, but I think my only concern is that it doesn't match up with the strategic planning process, and if staff feel like there is an opportunity to, like right now we're working with a strategic plan from a previous term of council, and now will be a budgeting process that will impact a future term of council. So is there a way to align them better, or is it just not possible given the timeline?
I think what you'll do from here going forward, if I can speak to that, is you'll constantly be working on sort of 4 years out. So you'll always be looking at future councils. The situation we have currently with our strategic plan is a bit unique because we did it right at the end of the last term. And that was really because it had been held up by COVID. And it's not something I usually like doing them exactly right after the election. We go into strategic plan and then we go from there. So, but this way, and this is a good example, we can budget that for next year and make sure we get back onto that more of an alignment process. And that's really what multi-year budgeting does, is it makes you, predict out where you want to be and where you want things to occur, and keep revisiting that to ensure that that's on the right timeline.
Councillor Halleru, please.
Through you, Mayor, to staff. So my question is, just in line with what Deputy Mayor is saying, if the current plan was done based on a demographic that perhaps may not even reflect right now the real aspirations of the previous, strategic planning. At what point do we get the current aspirations of the residents in this engagement, the stakeholder engagement, and how do we apply that to current planning and then into future planning so that it reflects both old and new?
So just to clarify there, this current council has had the chance to look over the strategic plan and then ratify it. So that is the current strategic plan for the town of Ingersoll. We're certainly always looking for input from our residents. And really, this process, when you think about it, it's really the operation cycle that we're currently in with capital. So capital is a 10-year forecast. You're going over multiple councils. This is really not, if anything, it's really, council always has the ability to change in the future. We can't handicap councils. We as a council in 2 years could say we're going in a different direction. We have that option, and capital is the same way, but it really gives staff, it's really good operationally to be able staff to be able to plan out if we're going in this direction. I'm going to pick on John because he's in front of me. If they're in the capital forecast that they're going to need an extra firefighter, so they're going to have to budget for extra gear, this gives the operational standpoint to be able to say, okay, the other half of it is say, okay, there's an operational side to that gear, which is a person, and what's the operational cost of that, and try to plot that in. And so there's multiple situations for that. Where council goes, nobody knows. But we try, right? But so we're always going to have to look ahead, but this is more of a forecast to try to plot those things out so we can see. And when the next council does a strategic plan, you'll be able to see those items plotted out. So really, we've got screwed up with COVID, but this will realign that and make sure that going forward, it'll be a lot easier to see when things will happen and allow staff to have clarity about when they need to plan for items coming forward, and both the capital side and the operational side.
Thank you. Through you, how much extra work is this going to put on staff for this year? Because I guess once they get the 4-year budget figured out, then it'll be easier. Then they just continue to plan on forward that way. Is it going to be that heavy a draw on the rest of the department heads to start this year and try to have the budget passed by the new year?
I would say it's a challenge. It's a new year. We have always been trying to look at future years to think ahead of certain projects, and some areas we've done better than others. But I think it's worthwhile to do. I think we definitely have the staff and the resources to do it. This time frame is a little tight. It's a little bit tight that way. So
you're saying we should look for version 1.0? Yeah. And it'll evolve over time.
That's true. That's true.
Councillor Van Kootenbosson.
So I must say, when I seen this, I was totally against it. I'll be honest. I cringed every time I seen London come out with multi-year budgets. But reading through the report, I realized that we can always go back and change things. It's not set in stone that it has to be this. And so I changed my mind. You changed my mind through the report, and I want to thank staff for bringing it forward, because honestly, I would have never supported anything like this in the past. I really felt that it was a tying of hands for the future council, and but I see that it is setting it up so that, that first year that you come in as a brand new council is tough. I know that the three new that are to council feel like you weren't a part of the strategic plan, but in actual fact, you had that opportunity as a citizen within this town to really have a voice. You probably had a better voice within that process of being able to put forth something. But again, I understand where you're coming from, that it was a previous council that had made most of the decisions. We did have a chance to ratify a fair amount of it, though. It gives an opportunity for us to plan it out, and I fully agree with going forward. My only question is there a reason why we pick Thursday nights to do the budgeting process? I have other commitments on Thursday night, you all know that, and it is landing completely on my Kiwanis nights. We only pick 2 nights in a month, and you're landing on all of them. So I set aside Monday nights for council. Is there any reason why we can't go back to Monday nights in that respect? I don't want it to be just about me, but I'm sure that others have commitments on, I've heard of others having commitments on Thursday nights too. So I'd just like to know the reasoning if I may, and then I'll miss Kiwanis if I have to. This is more of a priority, but I just thought I would ask, so.
We were just trying to punish you, Christy, is what we were doing.
That was the main reason.
Yeah, that was the.
That was. So as I mentioned before, the dates are just recommendations, so council may adjust them. So we can skip, because of the tight deadlines, those dates were proposed, but I looked at the calendar before the meeting, and we can definitely change the dates to the following, if council don't mind. So it would be following Monday, October 30th, November 20th, December 4th, and December 18th. They're all Mondays. Okay.
I'm seeing some nods around the room that Mondays are traditionally better for council. Yeah, especially with committee meetings and others items, schedules book up fast. Mr. Graves, please.
And if I could just reiterate one thing too about the strategic plan. One of the things we intend to do going forward is every year in your budget process, we'll have a report on the goals of the action plan and where we are on that action plan of the strategic plan. And as we work through some of those, a good example is like the more trees part of the strategic plan. We'll give you a report every year to say, okay, how do we do? Do we want to allocate more money to that? Do we want to expand that program? So council will have those choices. So even though we have the strategic plan, it doesn't mean that that's ending. Where every year we'll be analyzing that to say, do we want to expand on that? Do we want to do more of that? Or it may be possible there's some goals in there that council says, that's no longer a goal. And as always in your budget process, you don't have to just have a strategic plan to give a goal. If there's a goal that you want to accomplish in the budget process, that's your opportunity to say, now we want to accomplish this goal, and let's go out and work towards that goal, and let's allocate funds in order to do that. So it will be better when that strategic plan process follows the election cycle a little more closely, but for this year, nothing is cast in stone. Council has the flexibility, and the budget process is your best process to set that up to make sure that you're setting the goals and accomplishing the goals that you want to accomplish.
Sorry, if I could just clarify the dates that you proposed.
October 30th, November 20th, December 4th, and December 18th.
So I'd just ask council, and Councillor Hughes, you'll be moving the motion. So if you'll need to revise if you could revise the motion for that. If I'm seeing, is that more palatable to council? Okay. Is there any further questions of the report? Seeing none, then Councillor Hughes, would you like to make a motion, please?
Certainly. Moved by myself, Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Hellerue, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive staff report number T-017-23 as information, and that Council directs staff to implement a multi-year budget for the year 2024 to 2027, and further that Council approves the following dates for the 2024-2027 budget timeline. October 30th, November 20th, December 4th, December 18th, 2023.
Thank you very much. Discussion. I'm super excited about this. I like the idea of thinking as far in the future as we can and try to not predict what's coming, but forecast. And there's a difference between that, because forecasts are things that you should know that are coming. And it's part of our asset management plan, it's part of capital plan to do that. And I think it just makes a lot of sense to do that with the operational as well. To try to implement those items in an effective manner. It's certainly going to be work for staff. I agree with that. And certainly my message to staff is we know this is not going to be perfect first time. It's a learning process. But I think the more it gets implemented, the better it's going to be. And it'll be easier for staff going forward. When those items that are in there, and staff has to go every year and do the budget cycle, there's going to be less work yearly once it's implemented.
Yeah.
And I certainly appreciate council's input on the dates. I think that does work better for everybody. I think when I first got in council, I believe we were passing in April. And so that's rough on staff as well, especially from the capital standpoint, and not knowing exactly where that budget will be. So if we can truly have a budget passed before the fiscal year starts, that'll be a major accomplishment as well, and help move the municipality forward. So certainly in favor of the motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Oh, yes, Councilor Hughes.
Yes, thank you. 6 PM starts? Okay, perfect.
Question. Is this sorry, through you, Mayor, I am noticing 2024 to 207. Is that an error or what does that mean?
It should be 2027.
It should be 2027 before we pass this.
I have 2027 on my motion that I'm reading from.
So it's wrong.
That's within the report. If you go to where the motion is.
Okay, well, the motion is
Yeah.
correct and online. Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Excellent. Very good. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. It's almost that time of season already. Okay. It is 6:46, so why don't we take a break, and we'll come back at 7, and we'll do our public meetings and delegations, and then we can quickly get through the rest of the items just after that. So I'll entertain a motion for recess. Councillor Van Kootenbosens, second by Deputy Mayor Wilson. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, I'll call the meeting back to order, and we are going to go down to item number 10 on the agenda, which is public meeting zone change application. I declare the public meeting to be open. This meeting is being constituted as a public meeting held under the Planning Act for the purpose of hearing identified zoning amendments proposals. This meeting is also intended to provide the opportunity to any person in attendance to make a presentation to council. Anyone in virtual attendance who wishes to receive the decision of council on any application being considered this evening must submit a written request to the town clerk, Danielle Richard, at danielle.richard@ingersoll.ca. The Ontario Violent Tribunal has the power to dismiss an appeal under subsection 25 if an appellant has not provided counsel with oral submissions at a public meeting or written submissions before a bylaw is passed under this section. The application being heard concerns ZN 6-23-04 Walker Road, applicant 1879784, Ontario, Inc. Does any member of council have a conflict of interest on this application being heard this evening? Seeing none declared, has the clerk received any additional correspondence on the application that is not noted on the agenda?
No, we have not.
Thank you. I now request Planner Heather Sinclair to provide an overview of the application and an explanation of the requested zoning amendment, please.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good evening, Council. So as stated, the first application on tonight's agenda is an application to rezone the subject lands from residential type 3 zone R3 to special residential type 3 zone to permit an increase to the maximum lot coverage allowance from 40% to 50% of lot area to facilitate proposed townhouse dwellings. Specifically, the proposed increase will facilitate an exemption for the part lot control for 20 proposed street fronting townhouse units along the east side of Walker Road. The subject lands are approximately 3.3 acres in size and currently contain 6 street fronting townhouses that are currently under construction. Surrounding land uses predominantly include single detached dwellings, as well as the Lorne Moon Park to the south and agricultural lands to the east that are located within the township of Southwest Oxford. The development of the townhouses on the subject land was reviewed in detail by town staff as part of the town site plan control process and was approved in the fall of 2021. And at this time, the applicant is looking to create separately transferable lots through the part lot control exemption process for the 20 proposed lots that front onto Walker Road, which will result in a future lot coverage for each of those separately transferable lots of approximately 49.7%, whereas 40% is the maximum that's permitted. And it is noted that the remainder of the dwelling units, there'll be 23 additional dwelling units that'll be accessed by a private road that would be developed either as rental units in the future or as condominium developments. So with respect to the provincial policy statement, these policies do direct that planning authorities shall provide for a mix and range of housing types and densities to meet the future and current needs of the residents by permitting all forms of residential intensification and all forms of housing types required to meet those current and future needs. And by directing development of new housing towards locations where appropriate levels of existing infrastructure and public service facilities exist, and by promoting densities for new housing which efficiently use land and existing infrastructure, and by establishing development standards for residential intensification which minimize the cost of housing and facilitate compact urban form. With respect to the official plan, the subject lands are designated as medium density in the official plan, and this designation was established at the time that the subdivision was draft approved in the early 90s. The medium-density residential designation includes lands that are primarily planned for or built for multiple unit developments that exceeds the density targets established for low-density residential development. And it includes development types such as townhouses, medium-density cluster development, and low-rise apartment buildings. The property is currently zoned as residential type 3 zone in the town zoning bylaw, which was also established at the time of draft plan approval in 1991. The R3 zone permits a range of uses including apartment dwellings, group homes, multiple unit dwellings, and street fronting townhouses. The R3 zone requires that where street fronting townhouses are being proposed, the townhouse building shall contain a maximum of 8 dwelling units per building block and permits a maximum lot coverage of 40% for interior townhouse units and a minimum landscaped area of 30% of the lot area. As part of our public circulation, one letter of concern was received stating opposition to any further increase in the townhouse developments. And this letter did indicate concerns specifically with respect to traffic volumes and speed along David Street. To this end, it is noted that the development of the proposed 43 townhouse units has been approved through the town's site plan control process. And at this time, the increase to lot coverage is only required to facilitate the exemption from the part lot control allowance, which will allow these lots to be separately transferred. So with that, I can answer any questions that council might have with respect to the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does the applicant or the representative have any comments or anything to say concerning the application? I'm seeing not. Okay. I will now open this meeting to comments from the public. This portion of the meeting provides the opportunity for individuals to speak to the application and have their comments considered by the planner and council before the report and recommendation on the requested zoning amendment is brought forward at a subsequent meeting. Any person from the audience who wishes to provide comments to support, in support or opposition to the application may do so by coming forward to the lectern, stating their name and address for the public record. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to comment? I'm seeing none, and we don't have anybody online waiting. Oh, excellent. Okay, members of council now have the opportunity to ask any questions about the application. However, they may not offer any comments at this time. Any questions from council? Councillor Hughes, please.
Thank you. Just for clarification, this is consistent as to what we have done in the past in regards to once townhomes have been built to sever them off into individual lots so that they can be sold all individually and ownership is individual.
Through you, Mayor Petrie, that is correct. So essentially, the 20 units that are outlined in red on plate 3 of the staff report we will see a future application for exemption for part lot control, which will allow each of those parts in that plan to be separately transferred out, so they can be sold separately, individually.
And I have a similar question just for clarification. The current development is approved as proposed. It is just that they would not meet the zoning requirements to be sold as separate parcels.
That's correct. So essentially, as soon as we go through that part lot control exemption process, what's been approved will no longer meet the lot coverage allowance in the zoning bylaw.
Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none. If there are no further comments or questions, then the public meeting for this application is concluded. The application will now be scheduled to come before council at a subsequent meeting during which the planner's report and recommendation will be considered. As a reminder, if any members of the audience wishes to be notified of the decision of council of the town of Ingersoll in respect of any zoning bylaw amendments, they must submit a written request to town clerk Danielle Richard at danielle.richard@ingersoll.ca. The clerk must provide notice of council's decision to all those who request a copy within 15 days after the day that a bylaw is passed. Anyone who may appeal the decision to the OLT by filing with the clerk within 20 days of the notice of decision. The notice of appeal must set out the objection to the bylaw and the reasons in support of the objection, accompanied by the required fee. If there's no further comments or questions, I now declare these public meetings to be closed. Councillor Hughes, I believe you have a resolution, please.
Yes, I do. Moved by myself, Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Van Kooten-Bosens, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive Planner's Report CP 2023-220 as information.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We are now going to our delegations and presentations and the Oxford County Library 2022 Community Report, please.
Thank you for the invitation to speak with you today about the Oxford County Library. My name is Christina McLaren. I'm the Deputy Chief Librarian, Branch Services for Oxford County Library, and I'm here presenting with my colleague, Ellen Revi, who's the Community Librarian of the Ingersoll Branch. I'm sure many of you probably know and recognize Ellen. We will be providing a report card of library use, specifically at the Ingersoll Branch throughout 2022. Oops. So for the Oxford County Library, 2022 was about reconnecting with members of the public after the closures of library branches throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. And I'm sure if you've used the library, you recognize some of those photos on the slide. So Connect, this is following our tagline, Connect, Discover, Share, Become. So for Connect, over 30% of the Oxford County Library's active users are using the Ingersoll branch. During 2022, the library offered a mix of curbside pickup and in-branch visit options, and the Ingersoll branch made up almost 27% of the library's total number for these types of access. So it's a very well-used branch, even during a pandemic. Also, as part of the Connect tagline piece, 6.5% of the library's Wi-Fi connections were accessed through the Ingersoll branch. This includes personal devices that users connect to the library's Wi-Fi, both within the branch and outdoors within the limits of the Wi-Fi range. While we've worked at reconnecting with the public, in-branch computer use in 2022 saw a slow return at branches. Throughout that year, the Ingersoll branch saw quite a considerable number of those computer uses at just over 28% of the library's total computer use. Discovery of the Oxford County Library collection in 2022 surpassed our pre-pandemic numbers in 2019. More than 25% of the library's physical collection for 2022 was seen through the Ingersoll branch. So again, it's a very well-used library branch within our system, and it's one of our largest branches. We saw continued high use of our digital collections throughout 2022. These statistics are not available by individual branch location. Instead, they're for the entire county, the entire Oxford County Library system. So it represents all of our member downloads. Digital downloads in 2022 surpassed our 2019 numbers. Not surprisingly, a lot of people were still at home and working from home and looking for ways to entertain themselves without going out too much. Introduced during the pandemic, Craft and Connect kits, which are ready-to-go children's craft activities, were made available for families and children. They include instructions and materials needed to build the craft. They can be picked up and taken home for assembly or worked on in the library now that branches are open for use. In 2022, the library distributed almost 13,500 kits to families and children across the county. Ox on the Run, which is the Oxford County Library's mobile library unit, made 55 stops throughout 2022. Library staff connected with children and families at parks, splash pads, and special events. The Ingersoll Library branch hosted their Makerspace grand opening event. Their Maker Day PA Day was very successful with a total of 130 participants and led to many Makerspace appointments for the 3D printer and other maker tech. These were key ways, all of these were key ways to engage with children and families with program activities, and particularly with the Ox on the Run. They were program activities that people could do while respecting distancing and different comfort levels with that, with in-person connections. And of course, the Craft and Connect kits could be picked up and taken home for people to work on outside of the branch and within their own spaces. And I'm going to pass it over to Ellen to finish up our presentation.
Thank you, Christina, and thank you, Council, for having us here tonight. Oops. So one of the other parts of our tagline is share. We want to share what the library does. We want to share all of the things we can bring to our community. That includes by having various types of programming. We had 242 programs with almost 6,000 participants at the Ingersoll branch, which is wonderful. Seeing all of these happy faces coming back to our branch after a couple of very difficult years. We made a full return to in-person programming in 2022, and the library programs provided opportunities for participants to share experiences and build social connections, and really rebuild the social connections that they've been missing for the past few years. Almost a quarter of the total program participants attended programs here in Ingersoll. We offered things like summer reading club, our story times, craft programs for adults as well as children, book clubs, film clubs, various other programs for children, for teens as well, including our teen photography contest, which is a really great way to bring teens who aren't always coming to the library. They're coming into the library for this, which is wonderful. We also partner with lots of other organizations within the county and within Ingersoll specifically. We work with Early On, we work with Community Employment Services, Welkin, as well as CMHA. As I mentioned, teen programming and the teen photography contest brought teens back into the library, but to get to teens outside of the library, we started a program where they could get teen book boxes. Teen book boxes are sort of like a subscription service where they get a book that has been picked out for them by a library staff person. They get treats, they get swag, all for free, which is a really great way to get library material out to teens without necessarily bringing them into the library. We had 23% overall in the Ingersoll community who use this service. So the last part of our tagline is become. And become means becoming your best self using library services. We had, excuse me, throughout 2022, Oxford County Library cardholders accessed learning and development opportunities. Some of these opportunities came through an online resource called Universal Class. Universal Class is a resource where you can learn almost anything. You can learn things like accounting, you can learn DIY, how to put up drywall, you can learn parenting skills, teacher resources, writing skills. So this is one of our really, really well-used resources, and it helps our users become their best selves. Universal Class saw over 2,000 learning sessions from library cardholders in 2022. We also have another really, really wonderful resource called Creative Bug, and that's where you can learn all things creative. You can learn how to create art, you can learn how to knit, you can learn how to bake, all being taught by professionals. And again, this is a free resource that we offer through the library. Through this resource, we had almost 500 courses used by Oxford Library cardholders in 2022, including some that are specific to children, learning all these different activities, but tailored to how a child would learn. One of the other really neat things that we offer at Oxford County Library that is quite unique to our library is our kitchen lending library. So our kitchen lending library offers different kitchen utensils. We have bread makers, we have a pasta maker, really neat things that you wouldn't necessarily expect from a library, but it's another way to bring people in to our library. And this is a collection that continues to grow. It's grown in popularity with 92 items borrowed in 2021. And throughout the year, the Ingersoll branch accounted for almost 30%, around 28% of the total checkouts of our kitchen library. We also have the park passes, which if you haven't used, you should. They get you into Ontario parks for free for a day. And we had 250 day use park passes borrowed, and 59 of those were from Ingersoll. It's neat, isn't it? Yeah. We have it for Ontario parks as well as Upper Thames and as well as
Grand River Conservation Area, but those passes are only available through Princeton and Plattsville because they are within the Grand River watershed.
So another reason to visit other library locations. So some of the things that I wanted to make you aware of upcoming at our Ingersoll branch are our Oxford Reads program, which is actually for the entire county. Our 2023 selection is The Maid by Nita Prose. She is actually a Canadian author who just published this book last year, and she's going to be attending our Oxford Read Gala in November, which is very exciting. We're going to have an in-person gala this year. The last 2 years we've had virtual galas. So we'll have more information about that coming out, but it should be a really wonderful program, and we'll have in-branch programming opportunities as well, such as paint nights and other fun programs. For the kids, we have the Museum of Ontario Archaeology coming out to Ingersoll tomorrow to do a pinch pot, a traditional pinch pot program with our local kids. We like to partner with all sorts of different organizations from within the county and from without. We have our Family Fun Night Animal Trivia, which is going to be on August 24th, and that is a family trivia. We're trying to get families back in to have fun times together that isn't necessarily watching Netflix, giving them other opportunities. We also have a really, really neat teen program coming up on August 30th, where using old books, because we don't want old books to go to waste, they're going to use old books to create dioramas. So that's for our teens. I also encourage everyone to check out the mural that's going up in our library. We had some funding come in from the Kiwanis Club, very, very generous, and they donated paint and funding for us to create a new mural. So we had one beautiful mural for a very long time. We decided to refresh the library, and our new mural is in progress. So it's slowly but surely coming together. We'll have an event when it's finished, but do come and check it out at the library. And I think that is it for us. So thank you again for having us. Does anyone have any questions?
Any questions for the delegation? I don't see any, but thank you very much. I am on the library board, and so I'm a huge supporter of the library, and I'm a huge supporter of how much Ingersoll supports the library, whether it be from our service organizations or the patrons that use it. This is paid for in your taxes. Go and explore the library, see what they have to offer. If you don't have a library card, get one. If you want to know about your local history, we have an awesome local history section that I take time, probably once a week, to try to go down and explore, see what's down there, to get see what's happened in the past. We just have a great resource there that's available, and again, I've heard some people say, oh, I didn't know that about that, I didn't know about that, and that's a continuing story every month. So yeah, I can't say it enough. It's right downstairs. We have this resource in our community and throughout Oxford. Make sure you use it, and yeah, there's nothing like free information. It's the most equitable place we have. It's open to everybody. It has the most access to knowledge that if you choose to use it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excellent. I believe, Councillor Van Koetenbos, you have a resolution, please.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Wilson, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receives the presentation from Ellen Raby, Community Librarian, and Christina McLaren, Deputy Chief Librarian, regarding the Oxford County Library 2022 Community Report as information.
Discussion. Councillor McEwen.
I want to say thank you. I don't know where they went. Did they leave? Oh my God. Thank you as you leave the building. It is an amazing resource. I wanted to ask them if we could get, do you know if there's Oxford County statistics? Like, I would love to see how we compare to other municipalities in that respect. Do you know if that exists?
I don't know if those, if they do exist, we can certainly get them for you.
Okay.
I'll give a plug. Tomorrow is library board meeting, so if you go on the website, you can certainly check out the monthly agendas, and they have a plethora of statistics
Okay.
on there about usage and checkouts and then how the library is progressing.
Okay.
So
Well, I didn't, I'm like everyone else around the table had no idea how much they had. My daughter just got her library card and we haven't been back yet, but it's an amazing resource, you're right, that we have in our own community. And I'm not sure that people even know that we have 3/4 of the stuff down there. So hopefully this presentation will get people in our community out using our library more, and the service groups to get in there and see what's all involved, and maybe they can make use of it more as well. So I think this is great. Thank you.
Councillor Halleran.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, through you. I just also wanted to say it's a great opportunity to showcase to Ingersoll what we have in that library. As a newcomer, I'll tell you, that was a lifeline. Sometimes you don't know where to go. They can print out your resume for free for you. You come in, you use it, you ask questions, you get to know what's happening. They have the board there where you know activities that are happening in the community. So definitely one of the best things we've got in town to be able to go and get all that information and connect right away to the community. So awesome. I wish they heard how awesome they were.
I will just say that we're also, the library in Oxford County as a whole is in the process of doing their strategic plan. So the library is doing a separate one. So again, the board is certainly looking for what's next in the library's journey and how do we get there to change, to help serve, continue to serve our changing demographic, keep sure that we have the materials that we need and that we're still accessible going forward as technology changed. It's certainly a different library than it used to be, and I can say that Oxford County Library is extremely progressive in what they consider for what a library is, whether it be the kitchen equipment or access. It's all about access to knowledge and whatever they can do to try to broaden that horizon of what we think that is they're certainly trying to do it. So certainly supportive of that. So if you have time, you want to put input, there's certainly time to put input on the strategic plan as well. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Go get your library card. Okay, we're going to go back up to number 9, which is CD 22-02-6, Cash Crescent and Whiting Street, Rees Land Corp, please. And we'll go back to Heather Sinclair, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Okay, so the next application on the agenda this evening is an application for condominium and exemption from plan of condominium. This application proposes to facilitate the development, I apologize, I'm just trying to find the correct mapping here. The development of 38 new townhouse units by way of a vacant condominium proposal. And it is proposed that each lot will have access by way of an internal driveway that'll be accessed off of Cash Crescent. The subject lands are located on the southeast corner of Cash Crescent and Whiting Street and are approximately 4.8 acres in area and are currently vacant of any buildings. However, initial infrastructure works are underway. Surrounding land uses include existing and planned single detached dwellings, as well as planned town park to the east, the Samna Business Park to the west, and the Ingersoll Golf and Country Club to the east and south. The subject lands do contain an area on the south side of the property that has been identified as ecologically significant woodlands, but it is noted that no development is proposed in this area. The subject lands were created as a block associated with the adjacent residential subdivision and were rezoned in October of 2022 to facilitate the proposed condominium development. And at that time, the town undertook a detailed site plan review process for the proposed townhouses, which was finalized and granted approval in November of that year. So as council is probably aware, applications for condominium approval are typically dealt with in one of two ways, in accordance with the Condominium Act. The first method generally involves a similar application process to a draft plan of subdivision, whereby a proposal receives draft approval, which is contingent on the applicant satisfying a number of conditions before the subdivision is considered final and can be registered. The second process, which is applicable in this instance, is where the approval of a condominium is exempt from the draft or conditional approval stage and proceeds directly to final approval. This exemption process is intended to apply to proposals that have previously undergone a complete detailed evaluation, such as site plan approval, and no further conditions of approval are required by the municipality in order to facilitate the development. So as noted, this development will occur on a block that is located within a registered plan of subdivision, and given that the town has already undertaken and approved the fulsome site plan approval process, the requested exemption from condominium approval can be considered appropriate in this instance. Further, as the proposal will facilitate the creation of a different form of housing to meet the long-term needs for the current and future residents of the town, planning staff are of the opinion that the proposal is consistent with the policy direction of the provincial policy statement. The development is also in keeping with the medium-density residential policies of the official plan, and the proposed development will create housing opportunities that will contribute to a mix of tenure forms within the town, which is also in keeping with the policy direction of the official plan. And based on staff's review, the proposal will also comply with the development provisions of the R3 zone in the town zoning bylaw. Excuse me, the R3-30 zone, which is the site-specific zoning. No concerns were raised with respect to agency circulation, and all development will be located outside of the woodlot area, as noted. However, these woodlands will be commonly owned by the landowners within the condominium as a common element of that condominium approval. So overall, planning staff are of the opinion that the proposal is consistent with the relevant policy criteria and is compliant with the provisions of the zoning bylaw. And as such, staff are of the opinion that the application for draft plan of condominium and exemption from the condominium process is appropriate and can be supported from planning in this instance. And staff are recommending that council advise county council that they're supportive of the proposal. Thank you.
Excellent. Questions from council? Councillor Hughes, please.
Thank you. Through you to the planner, Heather. Since the treed lot area will be part of the, I guess, the condominium board, at such time would they be allowed to go in and make trails or cut trees and do whatever the condominium group wants to do?
Through your worship. Given that the woodlot has been identified as ecologically significant, any removal of trees would need to be in accordance with the county's woodlands conservation bylaw. Any trail network, it would be recommended from staff that they develop in consultation with town staff. Nothing's been proposed at this time, but that doesn't necessarily preclude it from any future establishment.
Further questions? So just a point of clarification, this development, rather than the previous application that we heard about, does not require any amendments to meet the requirements for part lot exemption?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, excellent. That's it. Further questions? Then Councillor Hallerue, I believe you have a motion, please.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Moved by myself, Councillor Hallerue, seconded by Councillor Wilson, that the Council of the Town of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll advise County Council that the town supports the application for the draft approval of a proposed condominium submitted by Reeves Land Corporation, file number CD 22-02-6, prepared by Brooks Lies Surveying Limited, dated July 13, 2023, for land described as Block 85, Registered Plan 41M-342 in the Town of Ingersoll, and that further that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll advise County Council that the town supports the application for exemption from the draft plan of condominium approval process submitted by Reeves Land Corporation, file number CD 22-02-6, and prepared by Brooks Lies Surveying Limited, dated July 13, 2023, for lands described as Block 85, Registered Plan 41M-342, Town of Ingersoll. As all matters relating to the development have been addressed through the site plan approval process and a registered site plan agreement with the Town of Ingersoll.
Thank you very much. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And we'll move down to correspondence. Number 12, review of a place to grow, CP 2023-194. Deputy Mayor Wilson, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Bowman, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive report CP 2023-194 entitled Review of a Place to Grow and Provincial Policy Statement Supplementary Report Number 2 from Oxford County Community Planning as information.
Discussion. I will say that obviously you'll see quite a bit of information provided by county planning. Thank you very much. Towards the implications, the continuing implications of the different planning amendments that have come forward from the province. As a side note, at County Council this past meeting, we did approve to move to a higher level of service for county planning to accomplish this. The planning staff right now can keep up with planning applications, but certainly as that continues to go forward, that's going to be a challenge. There was multiple options given, and council chose the highest option to not only allow to accommodate more growth in the planning department, but also provide these type of services for our residents to get ahead and actually have really be able to provide that proactive planning service that will have a great impact going forward in our community, to have the things that we want and not just have it be developer driven. So I certainly look forward to that continuing process and seeing what comes out of it. And we have a great planning model within Oxford County, and this is an example of that, having those resources there to provide this sort of information without having to go outside on our own. So any further discussion on it? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And we will go on to number 13, OPP Detachment Board updates. Councillor Bowman, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, Councillor Bowman, seconded by Councillor Hughes, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive the correspondence from Sarah Caldwell, Assistant Deputy Minister, Strategic Policy Division of the Ministry of the Solicitor General, regarding the Oxford OPP Detachment Board update as information.
Discussion. Councillor Hughes.
So I noticed on here, board composition for Ingersoll. Two councillors, council seats for 2, community representatives for 2, provincial appointees for 1, for a total of 5. That's a switch to what we currently are, which is 2 provincial appointees and 1 citizen of our community representative. Is that a misprint on their part? Is that moving forward?
No, it looks like that's what they adopted. Some on council will recall that we made this application quite a long time ago to request, because there was a proposal to change the boards. In fact, it sort of looked like they were trying to get rid of the boards and maybe create one big board. We requested that it remain the same at 5. They gave us that, but they got rid of, so I guess they don't want to be bothered with appointing as many people, so it is a bit of a change.
Yeah, and I'll follow up with that. I believe there is a backlog of provincial appointees across the board, not only Police Services Board. So I think it's actually a positive for our community. We'll have more say from council on who's on the Police Services Board, and the province will still have a say, but not as much.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to iterate as well, is that it's nice to see that we will have that much more community input into the Police Services Board and how that operates, and the fact that, as you said, when I was chair back 5 years ago, it was, 5, 6, 7 years ago, they were always having problems finding provincial appointees. So it's good to see that that's changed, and I think it is for the better.
What I will say, though, is we do have 2 provincial appointees, and they both are local now. So that's a good thing. We're not seeing, someone coming from outside the community. So it's good that way. But again, from council's standpoint, we'll have more say about who's on our Police Services Board. Councilor Van Kooten-Boston.
So with that in mind, the fact that we do have 2 provincial at this point in time, when will that need to change? Will we flip that person over to the community representative then? Or how are we going to do that? That's one question, and I'll ask my next question afterwards.
So at this point, it looks like it's early 2024 that this is going to be changing, so we're awaiting that they've got to go through the steps of posting the regulation and actually changing the act. So we'll know when we've got to meet that deadline.
Okay, thank you very much. And just so that it's clarified out there in the community, just because the province is dropping it to 1, the province never gave us money towards our OPP board in that respect. The town of Ingersoll is paying for all of those people to be at that board level. So it's not like the province is getting rid of any financial obligation, they're just getting rid of their commitment to trying to get 2 people on the board in that respect. And I just wanted to clarify that. I'm assuming I'm correct in saying that, but I just because people will think that, they gave us money towards it. That's not the case at all. It's completely the town of Ingersoll that's paying for that. So, thank you.
You are correct. Councilor Hallerow?
Yeah, thank you, through your mayor. Well, it's always been, for me, I just noticed that just one person from the community didn't feel right in the first place. Like, you have 2 councillors, but you still want your ears to the ground. So I think this is it's a beautiful development, in my opinion. So it gives us more community involvement, and it's kind of 50-50, so, yeah.
Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And we will move on to number 14, Oxford County Water and Wastewater Master Plan. Councilor Hughes.
Yes, thank you. Moved by myself, Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Hellerue, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive report PW 2023-33 from Oxford County Public Works regarding the 2024 Oxford County Water and Wastewater Master Plan as information. And further, that Council directs staff to review the plan and provide a report to Council at the September regular meeting outlining any concerns or recommendations.
Thank you. Discussion. Yeah, so I brought forward a motion at the County Council in which asking for a 75-day extension of the review period. And the basis of that is that I wanted to make sure there's a fulsome review of this, both this master plan and the next one, the transportation master plan, because of various reasons. They do this every 5 years. But this one's different, in my opinion, mostly because we've seen massive growth within Oxford and Ingersoll, which has changed our needs. So we need to make sure that that's incorporated within the plan. Also, many of the faces around not only our council table, but also county council have changed. This process was started at the previous council. And so we want to make sure that all new councillors and new councils around the area have a chance to have a look at this, as well as staff. We have Matt, who's our new engineer, who is, again, not with us when we started this process, so we want to have a fresh look of eyes, and all of our staff around the county to be able to do that. So I think with all those things added, it just makes time to we have a plan in front of us. Let's take a look at it. Let's have a fulsome review. The public also has a chance. It's on Speak Up Oxford, and that allows us to have the best plan going forward. We are seeing massive change. The next 5 years are also going to see massive change as far as our areas continue to grow. And so we want to make sure that regional transportation network and regional water wastewater system are going to meet our needs, and so we can ask that management plan the best way possible. So that's why I asked for that, and I certainly appreciate support of council and to direct staff to make sure that they have the ability to do that fulsome review in a time frame that's workable for everybody. Councillor Van Kooten-Bosens.
I just want to request then that the staff, that we make sure that we send it out on our social media. I don't know if it's really on our radar right now, but if we could get it on the radar, because people are looking at our social media posts, and it would be great to make sure that, you know, if they've got an opportunity to speak up. I don't necessarily get the county stuff, but I get town stuff. So if we can make sure that we're sharing that out within our town social media, that would be great, and then we can all share it out.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And we will now move to Councillor Hallerou for Oxford County 2024 Master Plan, Transportation Master Plan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So moved by myself, Councillor Hallerou, seconded by Councillor Bowman, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive report PW 2023-32 from Oxford County Public Works regarding the 2024 Oxford County Transportation Master Plan as information, and further that Council directs staff to review the plan and provide a report to Council at the September regular meeting outlining any concerns or recommendations.
Discussion. Ditto from the last one. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, so we will now go into bylaws, and that will be Deputy Mayor Wilson, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Van Kooten-Bosens, that the mover have leave to introduce and go into committee of the whole on the following bylaws. 1, establish user fees, bylaw 23-5272. 2, appoint Deputy Treasurer Mandy Clark, bylaw 23-5273. 3, confirmation bylaw August 14th, 2023, bylaw 23-5274. Council in committee of the whole, Mayor Petrie in the chair. On motion, the bylaws are accepted as circulated. That constitutes the first and second reading of the bylaws.
Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We are now in committee of the whole. Would anybody like to discuss any of the bylaws? Seeing none, Councillor Van Kooten-Bosens, can you rise as the committee of the whole, please?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Wilson, that the committee do now rise out of committee of the whole.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And Deputy Mayor Wilson, third reading, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Bowman, that bylaws 23-5272 and 23-5274 be now read a third time, passed, signed, and sealed, and that this constitutes the third reading of the bylaws.
All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We'll be now going into closed session. Councillor Bowman, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, Councillor Bowman, seconded by Councillor Hughes, that the council do now go into closed session meeting at 7:47 p.m. pursuant to Section 239, subsection 2 of the Municipal Act 2001, as amended, to discuss the following matters. Closed session minutes, July 10th, 2023. Section 2, Section 239, subsection 2, paragraph D, labor relations or employee negotiations, union negotiation status update. And number 3, Section 239, subsection 2, paragraph B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, CAO contract negotiations.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We'll now go to the J.C.